Good evening, everybody. Welcome to what is our probably 8th or 9th show.
Oh, yeah, when you're having fun at
And
time
Call the
flies.
Doctor. It is, isn't it? We have a very special guest tonight. It's Dr. Richard Michal. He operates a form of medicine that is rare to this type of, to this community. It's very popular in northern and larger southern cities, but it's actually a very unique thing here, and I would bet you none of you have heard of it, except those that are working with the good doc as his patient. It's on concierge medicine. It's a French word that I have trouble getting out of my mouth. I looked up the term, and what it means is, of course, I knew about it as a form of medicine before, but the term actually means, in the literal French translation, is somebody who lives in a hotel and manages the hotel, kind of like a live-in manager, to cater to the needs of everybody who may stay at the inn. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit about how Rich and I met. I think it started off with you sending me a patient, and then I typically would call about a problem patient, and we had a little didactic, and we talked about him, and then I said something that made him think that I knew a little bit about astronomy, that he knows a lot about astronomy, and that was a personal interaction between us. I, as a kid, built the largest telescope in New Jersey, handmade telescope. He did as well, so that was a segue for us to get to know each other a little bit better. It's a lot of time to make a telescope, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, like 1,000 hours of work. Yeah.
Tedious.
It's precision and precise work is like what we do. So it evolved into a commonality. We also have other things in common, and we both do a ton of mission work, overseas medical work, volunteerism, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
First, tell us a little bit about you, your history, and what brought you to this area, and,
Sure.
and we'll talk about the specifics of your practice there.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that. You know, I'm bilingual because I grew up north, and I can speak northern, but we moved, fortunately, to the south when I was a sophomore in high school. Moved to the Charlotte area, and you would have to drag me back. Maybe on a quick visit, I'll go back up north, but honestly, I went to UNC undergraduate. I got a BS in zoology, changed one shade of blue to another shade of blue, went to Duke for my medical school, and then went across the border briefly for my family medicine residency in Newport News, Virginia. So I decided to come back. My faith is very important to me, and I wanted to find a way to incorporate that into the practice of medicine and to the business of medicine. And back in those days, believe it or not, it was before the internet. Long
Remember
time
those
ago.
days?
Yes. When a fax machine was the wonder of the world, right? Networking,
When it worked.
Yeah, networking was not nearly what it was now, and I started the practice here in Rocky Mount, and it's a long story, but it was an answer to prayer, and lo and behold, all these years later, founded the Family Medical Center in Rocky Mount, a big outfit, and just decided in the last year and a half to take a segue into something different. Didn't feel like my time in medicine was at an end. Had been looking at concierge types of practices, and decided that was for me. So it's been a journey. But I'm kind of an albatross because, how many times does a doc settle in one town? I mean,
It's not common.
it doesn't happen a whole lot.
This is
But-
my third or fourth practice.
This
Yeah.
is-
But you can't leave now. You got to
I'm not going anywhere.
No, it's called roots.
I'm here, Gene.
It's called roots.
Yeah.
Roots.
Well, it takes a while to find roots,
Yeah.
is an issue. And there's many things in a medical practice that have to blend to give you a comfort level, so you can practice the style that you like. I was employed, couldn't stand telling anybody telling me how to practice. We used to work for Geisinger in Pennsylvania. They limited how many nuns I can no charge. They limited how many people without good insurance I could take. And they would literally not let me put them on the schedule for follow-up exams, and because money is important to some. Now, that's not the experience at UNC. It's certainly not the experience at my practices in Tarboro or in that area or in Rocky Mount with Nash. They've been beyond wonderfully supportive. But I did have that experience in the past, and I settled here with a big smile on my face because those support systems really do exist here, and I'm sure you feel that as well.
Yeah.
It's not common when you go up north that you get that type of treatment as a physician, and there's bigger institutions around here that don't give you that latitude as well. So,
Now, I don't know if you know, but as an example of the success of Rocky Mountain Family Medical, I had the honor of presenting to them the Small Business of the Year award. I mean, they check all the boxes as far as giving back to the community, having great customer service. People absolutely love them, and of course, you and Dr. Abel are the founding partners of that. But 35 years they ran that, and
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Tell us about your astronomy love.
Oh my goodness. That started, oh gee whiz. My best buddy, this is probably when I was 6, 7, 8 years of age, he said, hey, my dad's going to take his telescope out tonight. You want to come down? Well, anything my buddy did, it was good.
The little competition.
And, I never looked through a telescope, but I think we looked at Saturn plus other stuff. And Saturn just hooked me. That Christmas, my parents, they kept hearing me talk about it, and they got me a telescope from like a Kmart special. And so I started with this little small telescope, but I had to upgrade it. And
instantly, right?
Oh, I upgraded it.
The cheap ones aren't good enough.
I upgraded it to a different mount, of course, duct tape over everything.
Right.
But started doing observing, read books about it. I was kind of a nerd back then as well. And
just back then.
Yeah, just back then. But loved it, and it did keep me off the streets. And my parents always knew, like, he's probably where the telescope is. And so it was great. And, the toys of boys get bigger as they get older. And now I have a telescope. My wife has aptly said it's aptly named. It's called Obsession. It's
Good for Betty.
It's a 20-inch behemoth. It really looks like a cannon,
right?
A missile launcher.
In the world of telescopes, 20 inches is huge. The one I made was 16 inches, and
that's huge.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And it was very impressive to see it in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
To tell you guys, just not to believe, because this show's not really about astronomy, but once you see the rings of Saturn, you're hooked.
Oh yeah.
And the red spot on Jupiter, as kids, it was a stunning thing, right?
Yeah.